Hi and welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be talking about debt settlement and some of the basics. So let's get started. What is debt settlement? Debt settlement is a negotiation process in which either a business or individual pays less than what they originally owe. Sometimes it's called debt adjustment, and third-party companies also often call it debt relief programs. Now, the amount or percentage of the original balance that you pay kind of varies dependent on the lender or the debt collector. So there is a wide range, but in general, it is less than the original amount. That's why it's called settling. Generally though, you do need to be delinquent in not paying those accounts for roughly 90 days before places will consider a settlement offer. What's the process for debt settlement? Well, the process varies, but this is going to be assuming that you are going through a third-party company. So let's talk about those steps. The first step is assessment, which is just assessing what is your financial picture at the moment and what can you afford to pay, what can you afford not to pay, etc. Now, when you're doing this assessment, you also not only want to consider your budget, but you want to consider the minimum payments, the interest, and roughly how long you're going to have to pay off the balance with what you are currently doing. You also want to make sure that you are aware of any fees, so late fees that are already being applied, etc. So that way you have a good idea on the grand total. The second step is called consultation, which is when you either talk to a third-party company or a debt settlement attorney. Now, there's also some nonprofit credit counseling agencies that can also provide these services, so as always, do your research. Step 3, savings account. In most cases, and by most I'm talking like 95% of cases, the money that you would be going to applying for your debts are going to be accumulated into a separate account, usually either with the debt settlement attorney or with the debt settlement company, in order to start creating a cushion to which you can make lump sum settlement payments out of. Generally, having the savings account means that you are stopping paying on your other debts. Step 4 is negotiations. That's when the third party will contact on your behalf the debt collection agency or the lender in order to find agreeable terms. Step 5 is agreement. So once a settlement has been agreed to, it's the paperwork process in order to ensure that your offer is something that is agreed upon. Generally, this settlement offer, when it's written out, will also include the terms so you fully understand what you agree to. 6, payment. So that's when you make the lump sum payment in order to settle the debt. Sometimes you can also do like a repayment plan. So instead of a lump sum payment, you may have cut it down into 3, 4, or a set installment period. And the last step is credit report monitoring. Essentially, you want to make sure that you are monitoring your credit report to make sure that those old debts that you have settled are reported appropriately based on your terms as either paid in full or debt settled, etc. It depends on the terms of your agreement. I just want to note that this process takes generally from months to years, and so it is not a quick fix, and it is something that you need to talk to either the third-party company or to the debt settlement attorney in order to figure out roughly what your timeline could be. Another thing to note is because it takes so long, it is often where you don't hear very often from either the debt settlement company or the debt attorney until you accumulate a lump sum in order to make negotiations. So sometimes there are months where all you're just doing is not paying your debts and putting it into that savings account, and they're just not going to tell you that they made any traction because they're waiting for that savings account to have a good cushion to then start the negotiation process. So that's just something to take a note, because a lot of people are like, I haven't heard anything, and that's pretty normal. How much can you expect to settle your debt for? So this is actually a big range, but in general, I have seen people pay anywhere from 30% to 50% of the balance. However, I have also seen people pay even less or even more. In one case, I only saw a debt settlement offer of a 5% discount if paid in full, and that does happen. Do creditors or lenders have to accept a settlement offer? No, they don't. While most companies do accept a negotiation negotiation. There are companies that will stick to their guns and say no and pursue you in a legal court case in order to get their money back. Essentially, there is no legal obligation for these companies or debt collector companies to accept a settlement offer. Why do creditors or lenders even accept a debt settlement offer to begin with? So some lenders are willing to do this because they are afraid that you may potentially file for bankruptcy, in which they may potentially not see any of their money. So sometimes they just think it's better in the long run to get some of the money instead of no of the money. Can you hire a company to do a debt settlement? Yeah. You totally can. It's something that is pretty commonly done. When you are entering these agreements, generally there is a power of attorney financially in order to grant access for them to talk on your behalf. If you agree to this financial power of attorney, you want to make sure that you stay out of contacting these creditors or debitors. They may continue calling you, but you want to redirect them to the third-party company because they can and oftentimes will try to use what you say against you with the settlement offering. I also want to let you know that you are able to revoke the financial power of attorney, and you also are able to make it limited. So in that regard, you can just list creditors or debitors that you want them to handle and that they can only talk to those companies instead of other debts or other companies, banks, etc. that you don't want them to have access to. What are debt settlement fees like? So this varies based off the debt settlement company that you utilize. Sometimes it's a flat rate, sometimes it is a percentage of the amount of debt that you are enlisting to be settled, and sometimes it is what is considered performance-based, so it is a percentage of whatever the amount they save you from the original balance. Again, it depends on that debt settlement company. Other fees are monthly maintenance fees, which is their way of saying that they have an administration cost for having that savings account for you where you are putting your payments to create that lump sum to then do your settlement. Sometimes they also will say that there are legal fees, and that is generally for cease and desist letters. Again, it varies on the debt settlement company. Can you do it by yourself? Yes, you can try to contact the debtors yourself in order to come up with a debt settlement plan, and debt collectors are often ones who will try to push you if you don't have a third-party company. However, some people find this super stressful, and again, it takes time. You might say the wrong thing and they may take you for a loop, or you could get a better offer with somebody with more experience in negotiations. Again, it is something that you could do by yourself, or you can hire a third-party company. It is based off of your ability to make these calls and try to figure out these decisions for yourself. So why do people stop paying their debts in the negotiation process, and why do these companies suggest that I do the same? Well, the first idea is that it creates leverage in negotiations, because if they're not receiving any money, then you aren't paying them, and therefore they're more likely to take a settlement offer because they want any amount of money versus no money. As I mentioned before, another reason why this is done is so that way you can accumulate money to then make lump sum payments. Because if you are not paying it towards the debt, you can then put it into account to accumulate. The last one is that by not paying, you are demonstrating that you have financial hardship. And that is something that most creditors will need in order to even consider a settlement. However, it is super crucial to understand that there are some big cons to not continuously paying on those debts, so I want to quickly touch upon them. The first is a negative impact on your credit score. When you become delinquent, it is going to affect your payment history, which is the biggest factor in all credit scores. Another con is by not paying, you may get an increase in collection efforts, which is that you're probably going to get debt collectors calling you, sending you mail, etc. And so that is something that can be really annoying for people to handle. Interest and fees. So if you are not paying, you may end up getting additional late fees to, in some cases, penalty APRs, which are usually higher than your normal APR being applied to your balance. And the last one is the potential risk for legal action. Because you did agree to pay on these debts, it is possible that your debitors will go and file a suit against you in order to get a garnishment, which means that they will go after the wages that you are paid in order for them to get their payment. What are some downsides for debt settlement? Well, the first is that in some cases, the settlement amount can be counted as income. What that means is if you are settling your debt for $10,000 and you're only paying $2,000, then they may potentially count that $8,000 as income, and therefore you are going to end up having to pay taxes on that. I just want to make sure that you are aware, and please talk to your tax person to see if you qualify for insolvency. If you qualify for insolvency, then the forgiven debt won't be added to your income. So that is a form that has to get filled out. Please, again, talk to your tax professional to see if you qualify. Generally, settlements will remain on your credit report for 7 years, and in general, you will get a credit score drop of 100 points or more. It is potentially possible to negotiate for a paid in full status, which would not affect your credit score as much, but not all credit companies will do that or agree to that. And it's pretty rare now, but again, it's a potential option that you can potentially ask for. Again, the process in general takes years, so that is a time-consuming and often mental health, emotion draining time. And the last is that sometimes banks or credit card issuers will not allow or issue you a new credit card or loan with them if you had debt settled with them prior. In most cases, it's during the time of those 7 years on your credit report, but for some, it is potentially possible that they just outright refuse you. So as always, please do your research. Make sure that you are looking at all of your options, because debt settlement is one that could potentially work for you, but there are other options out there that wouldn't affect your credit score as much. As always, you can also contact professionals in order to analyze your personal situation to see if there are other options. And the fact that there are professionals out there for you to contact to get this worked on is something that you can take advantage of. So yeah, that's the basics around debt settlement. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend. Got any questions or want to say hi? Drop a comment down below. I'm more than happy to help you in any way that I can. If you're a subscriber, thanks so much for subscribing. And if you aren't, consider subscribing, because I try to post a video weekly that is related to a personal finance topic. Next week, I am actually going to be doing my debt, but the following week, the next video in this series is going to be about hardship programs, which is another potential option that you might want to consider. So until the next week, I hope you tune in. And as always, I'm wishing you the best, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!